Welcome to World Chefs Podcast. I'm your host, Ragnar Fredriksson, and this is World on a Plate. This month at World Chefs, we're talking about culinary innovation. So I'm extremely excited to give a warm welcome to a guest who truly embodies the essence of innovation, who is Hervé This. Hervé is a physics and chemistry expert that is renowned as the inventor of molecular gastronomy, as well as molecular cuisine, and most recently, note-by-note cooking. This year, he earned the prestigious recognition of the Sonning Prize, recognizing his work to renew and scientifically question the foundations of culinary know-how and culinary gastronomy. Today he continues to pioneer food innovation and is a revolutionary voice in the cuisine. So let's get our hands into it, Hervé. Welcome to the show. It's nice to have you back again.
I'm very happy. I remember with pleasure the time in Thessalonica. Was it in Thessalonica that we had this meeting? No, it was a very pleasant time meeting all chefs. Wonderful time.
It was a very memorable speech you made in Thessaloniki for the World Chef Congress. And I hope that you will be able to join us for next World Chef Congress. We'll talk about that back in 2026. But you joined us also for the podcast in 2020. It was just during COVID, one of our first podcasts. And then we started talking about the note-by-note cooking. So maybe.
By the way, Ragnar, if I may, indeed, you gave three terms which were molecular gastronomy, molecular cooking. You said molecular cuisine, and note-by-note cooking. Indeed, there are five. I say that just to frame the context. Molecular and physical gastronomy is a scientific activity for scientists like me. Yes. I'm not a chef, even if I can cook, by the way. Now, molecular and physical gastronomy was introduced formally in 1988 with Nicolas Curti. We began before, but there was no name. It was just an activity, and when we understood better what we were doing, we created a new discipline, a new scientific discipline. About science, one has to be very careful because Auguste Escoffier, a long time ago, said something very wrong. You know, this man was very wrong. We have to tell that. The Guide Culinaire is a bad book. But anyway, he said in the future, cooking will become a science. And indeed, it's not possible. Because a scientific activity means looking for the phenomena using a scientific method, which is calculation, equations, and so on. Cooking will never be that, because cooking means producing food. And indeed, cooking is love, art, and technique. This has nothing to do with natural sciences like physics and chemistry. It's something different. So the chefs are artists, and this is what we ask them to be able to do good culinary art. And the scientists are scientists. And when we study cooking, I mean, for example, in my seminar, each month in a culinary school, I have an experimental seminar. So we study a question. For example, last week, it was, is there a difference in consistency between a dough for pizza when it was fermented or not? Of course, there is a flavor difference. You know, when you ferment 2 days, you have a slight acidity, you have a very good flavor and so on. But is there a consistency difference? And indeed, there was none, which is very interesting. So the fermentation is only useful for it does not depend if you knead the dough and so on. The consistency is something different. And indeed, an experiment that we did was very interesting. We made a dough that was fermented, another one that was not fermented, the same ingredients, the same flour, the same yeast, and so on. And then we make the two bowls. And I had the idea of cutting them before cooking. And indeed, we could see the same bubbles, which mean that probably the kneading is enough to create the bubble, but the bubble do not come from the fermentation. And you see, this is the first step of science. It's just an observation. Now that we have this result, the fact, the phenomenon, we can study it at the lab. The chef don't care. The chef want to make their pizza a good pizza, which is something very different. So this is for molecular and physical gastronomy. The second point I say that because in America in particular, there is a lot of confusion. And even in Blue Sky yesterday, people were speaking of molecular gastronomy restaurants. It's not possible. You can have molecular gastronomy laboratories, but not molecular gastronomy restaurants. In a restaurant, you don't make science, you make cooking. Anyway, so the second step was molecular cooking. The name is bad. I gave this name in 1999 because, when we began our activity, at the same time, I was promoting a renovation of culinary tools. And in 1999, there was so much confusion that the journalists were confusing science and cooking. And it was a meeting in Paris with Heston Blumenthal. Heston was nearby. The camera was on, and Heston was saying that he was doing molecular gastronomy. I said, no, you're not a scientist, you're a chef. And I said, okay, you're doing, oh, let's say molecular cooking. It was a bad name. It is a bad name. People have bad ideas about that. They say, well, we are not cooking with molecules. So it is not the question. The definition of molecular cooking means cooking with modern tools. So liquid nitrogen, siphons, rotary evaporators, and so on, because there are many. For example, ultrasonic probes to make emulsions, and so on. So indeed, so this is the second term. So you have molecular and physical gastronomy, molecular cooking, which is a technique. And from this technique, a new style was based on, which is molecular cuisine. So you were right saying molecular cuisine. It is a style all over the world. You have that when you have foams, emulsion, and so on. Now, the next step was 1994 when I introduced, at the beginning, I said synthetic cooking. And because it was before the year 2000 and people were upset about the 2K bug, I said, okay, let's drop science and let's say note by note. And indeed, today I come back to synthetic cooking. So I say synthetic cooking, it's a technique. It means cooking with compounds, water, ethanol, polysaccharides, and so on. And from this technique, you have a new style, which is note by note cuisine. So you see, cuisine for the style, cooking for the technique, and now it's clear. Molecular and physical gastronomy, science, and then in the kitchen, molecular cooking, molecular cuisine, synthetic cooking, and note by note cuisine. I'm sorry it was long, but
No.
it is clear, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That just that we have the definition and terminology all in place. It's very good because it's easy for me and anybody to start mixing things up. And so thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's not so serious, but anyway, if you are a good professional, when you are asking for a hammer, if you get a screwdriver, it's not the same thing. So it's better to have the right tools. I remember a discussion with Pierre Gagnère. I was on the phone, and Pierre was on the phone as well in the restaurant, and I heard him saying, "Oh no, guys, is it not possible?" And I asked, "What is not possible?" And he said, "They are using langoust instead of homard." I don't know the translation in English. Homard should be lobster, langoust, probably langoust as well, I'm not sure. And in a particular dish for him, it was so important to have only the lobster, and a special lobster from Brittany, not the other lobster that was from another place. This is this question of detail. If you want to be a good professional, the words are very important. The words are the thoughts. If you don't speak well, you don't think well. And if you don't think well, probably you don't produce well. So I'm insisting a lot about words, but all the mistakes that I made myself were based on wrong words. So
yeah, so important to have the right terminology. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so now with like synthetic cooking and note by note cooking, so synthetic techniques, note by note cooking. Can you just give us and the listeners a reminder of examples of note by note cooking and what you've been
the best is to give a recipe. You take, so the idea is to avoid traditional or classic ingredients like meat, fish, eggs, and so on. So you use the compounds from these products. So the compounds are water, proteins, lipids, saccharides, and so on. Okay, so you will make this experiment. You take, for example, one vessel, a cut pool. Then in this vessel, you put water. It's a pure compound. You put one spoon of proteins. It could be egg white proteins, I don't care, or plant proteins, the proteins that you want. It should be raw, not cooked already. It's important because I had a problem in a lecture about that.
So the
Now,
protein is in like a powder format? Is it like a
yeah, it's a white powder. Yeah.
chemical protein? Yeah, or like
Chemical.
how do you find that protein? Like why not just use the meat? So where do you get the protein
Everywhere on
in fish?
internet, you can buy egg white powder, for example, or
Yeah, egg
even
white powder. Okay.
at the pastry chef. I mean, when you buy, for example, egg white protein, it's not one protein only. It is, in the egg white, you have 300 different proteins. So in the powder, you have a lot of protein, but the most important one is of albumin, 45% of the content. So you don't care, they will behave correctly.
Okay.
You have your vessel, you put 1 spoon of protein, you put 6 or 7 spoons of water, and in this way, first, you reproduce an egg white. Because an egg white is 90% of water, 10% protein. So you see,
Hey.
you have the white. If you whip, you will get a whipped egg white. But this is not the recipe that I propose. Now you use your oil. The worst oil. I mean, not the worst, but the purest oil which has no flavor. Okay. For example,
Sunflower.
well, anyway, sunflower. Now you pour your oil into the vessel and you whip with a whisk, and you get an emulsion, a white emulsion with no flavor at all. Okay, this is very good because now you can decide you get the consistency, and now you can decide for the flavor, the color, the taste. For example, if you put some salt, it will dissolve into the water of the emulsion. If you put some sugar, and I advise you to put a lot of sugar, it will dissolve in water. Now, if you taste, you will see that it is sweet. That's all. Now you put some tartaric acid. I love tartaric acid personally. So you put some pinches of tartaric acid. You have a slight acidity plus the sweetness. Now you put any colorant you want, for example, green, because it is the color of plants. So you have a beautiful green if you use a beautiful colorant. It is sweet, it is slightly acidic. And now it's all, you put that in beautiful small cups. And you put these cups into the microwave oven for 20 seconds. And in 20 seconds, you get soufflé. And it's done. You see, you have the taste, you have the odor. No, the odor I forget. In order to add some odor, I will spray probably in this recipe. I'm not an artist myself, but I would advise you to use 1,6-hexanes. It's a compound. You will not use pure, but in a solution. And on the net, you can find a company selling the dissolution of this odorant compounds. So you see, you have created the dish from pure compounds, and it's a real dish. We served that for 500 guests at a banquet already. Almost this one. So it's an example. But now you can make a surimi of surimi, for example, using the same kind of process. You use the proteins, you use water, you make a dough, you add for example, cornstarch, which is almost pure amylopectin. Then you have a mixture that is thick. You put that on a plate, very thin. With a fork, you make scratches, and you cook 20 seconds in the microwave oven. You get a sheet that is coagulated. You roll the sheet, you put some red color, you put some paprika, and you spray a crab, you have a surimi. And this is how it is done. So why not in the kitchen? This is my proposal, which if the industry does it in the factories, we have to be able to do that in kitchens and to improve, of course. Because some surimis are very good. But now imagine that you are a chef. Instead of making just a surimi, you can make a surimi of surimis,
Mm.
which is a consistency that nobody had before. You can create new consistencies, new flavor, new odor. For example, nobody in the world had before the mixture of 1xn3 all, the one that I taught you before, plus, let's say, which one? A gamma lactone. You know, this mixture has never been made. It is not present in plants and food. It is a new flavor. Of course, the concentration are important. So there are many possibilities. So it is a world, a whole continent of innovation that I give you with synthetic cooking. So now the decision is yours. Do you decide to cross the Atlantic to go to America, or do you stay in the old world? This is the question. And indeed, it is not difficult. You know, we have an international contest for not by not cooking every year. The youngest competitor was 12 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And he was in a remote village in the Pyrenees, which is a mountain in the south of France. You know, the boy, it was wonderful. You know, it was like painting of children. You know,
Mm.
there is no perfection. But anyway, the guy, he produced the food. And he won a prize. Pierre Gagnère offered him the travel to Paris to spend one day in the restaurant.
Wow.
It was moving. I was very happy.
So you think that then I don't know if Pierre Gagnère is doing that, but you instead of buying fish from the fishmonger from the ocean, you would be compiling compounds and creating a, well, would you still call it fish or would you call it something else? Or
It has to be called differently, of course. You know, for example, about artificial meat, I'm against the use of meat,
right.
the word meat, because meat is meat. We have to be loyal, otherwise we are not honest, really. So the in vitro systems that are produced from muscular cells should not be called synthetic meat or artificial meat. Sometimes I accept to call them fake meat because it's I'm criticizing. I have nothing against the product itself. I have something against the word. It's not meat. So
Back to
let's
words.
put it
Words are
bluntly.
important. Yeah, words
Yeah,
have
let's,
meaning.
and indeed, I proposed a word some years ago. I call that a dirac. If you make a reproduction of meat, it is called a dirac, D-I-R-A-C. That's all. And people will eat a dirac. By the way, I'm happy to tell you that a book of mine with many of my inventions of the past will be published in September in French.
Ah, okay. Okay. So you already published the Handbook of Molecular Gastronomy in 2021
No?
in English.
No.
Yeah.
By the way, it's all very well.
Mm.
We don't get much money, but this was not the question. It was helpful, and
That's
this
cool.
book is all over the world now. Yes, yeah, it's
Yes.
important. It's
So
important because we had text for science. Then we could discuss the application for education, which is very important, and then the recipes.
mm,
And we are in the middle of producing a new book made from the third part that will be enlarged.
excellent, excellent. So
Yeah.
we will once you have the book out, we will be very happy to send the information where people can
Thank
buy
you.
it or download on World Chefs. I mean, I guess there's been a long journey, the molecular from the what you mentioned, the gastronomy to the molecular cuisine and cooking and techniques and node by node. Is it still very much alive? You just came back from the Alchemist in Denmark. You told me that you had a seminar with chefs there, and at Rasmus Munk restaurant, his laboratory. Was there a
Indeed,
lot of interest? Has it changed a lot the way chefs are approaching node by node cooking?
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, it was very interesting. By the way, Rasmus Monk was very friendly. This guy is very interesting. Indeed, I was the dinner at L'Alchemist was only a very small part of my calendar in my agenda in Copenhagen because I was there for the prize, for the Sonic Prize. So I was lecturing twice per day for 1 week. And one of the lecture was at Spora. Spora is the innovation company of l'Alchemist.
Mm.
And Rasmus invited the chef around, and I did a lecture on culinary innovation because many of my proposals are not well done. For example, I'm not sure that you know my proposal of epic cooking, or I don't know that you know much about culinary constructivism, really, or I don't know if you know much about non-realistic cooking that I introduce as well. So indeed, because many of my lecture were in France, um, because it's easier. The outside world, let's say, escape many of my proposals, but it's not because I don't want to give them. It is because of I have only 2 hands and 24 hours per day. So,
Mm.
but I will be very happy to present in a webinar if you want for your association to present this lecture because I could see how the chef from Copenhagen were interested by it, and I see I you know personally I don't care about myself. I care about being useful. And the many questions of the chef there show that it was useful. So I was happy because it was useful. So if I can be useful, I will be useful for your association as well. I will be very happy with that. So indeed, l'Alchemist dinner was incredible. And it was the beginning of a discussion about should we focus on the intrinsic of food,
Mm.
the flavor, or should we do an event? An event is extrinsic, it's not intrinsic. Both are interesting. I am not there to tell chef you should do something or you should not do. You do what you want. But the debate was interesting intellectually because the question is how to make something good. This is the main question that I'm discussing for decades. I don't know very well. I fear that the human beings love fat, sugar, and salt, and ethanol plus smoking. And this is the reason why they are so sick. So we have to, through food, to propose something safer. And it's very difficult. And I will tell you an experiment that I did in a seminar on more, which is very strange. You take a potato, you cut 2 sticks of potato 10 centimeters long, like French fries, let's say.
Mm.
Now you put hot oil in front of you. You weigh the 2 sticks. Let's say that they would weigh 10 grams each. You put them into the oil. Yeah, then you see streams of vapor going out of the French fries. And when they are fried, you take them out at the same time and you whip one with a cleaning paper, okay, absorbing paper. And after 1 minute, you clean the other. Very well. And now you put them on a scale. The one that was whipped after 1 minute has 1/2 of a gram more than the other. It means that 1/2 of a gram of oil was absorbed by the fry.
Mm.
You realize 1/2 of heated oil, which is perfectly unsafe, was absorbed, and in each when you buy French fries, in each fry you have 1/2 of heated oil, which is crazy. And people tell me I want to eat safe. No, it's not true. And by the way, in my seminar, I did this experiment in public, and then I organized a triangular taste, a blind taste, let's say. All of them could recognize the fry first whipped at the beginning or the second one whipped after 1 minute. Blind, they could recognize it. Mm. And now when I ask the question, which one do you prefer? All of them preferred the French fry with the oil.
Yes.
And this is human beings. So human beings are not defined by speaking or by laughing or something. They are defined by bad faith. They say, I want to eat safe, and it's not true. Yeah. They want fat, sugar, salt, and ethanol. And I have nothing against that, you know. But you know, barbecue, it's very strange. People want to be healthy, to eat healthy, and they make barbecue. In one barbecue, you have 2,000 more cancerogenic benzopyrenes than it is admitted by law in smoked salmon. I'm surprised, you know.
So could you think of like if we liked the flavor of barbecue, that instead of barbecuing meat, we would recreate components and introduce a barbecue flavor somehow
Of course,
into
yeah.
reconstituted any protein we wanted.
Yeah, the barbecue
And it might
flavor.
be healthier or
You
healthier.
know, the barbecue flavors, there are many barbecue flavors. If you go in a flavor company, a flavorings company, we should say,
Mm.
then, for example, I know very well Man. Man is in the south of France. I visited the factory. They have uh, hundreds of different barbecue flavorings.
Mm.
You can decide which one. So why do we make barbecue, you know? And by the way, we don't know how to cook meat on a fire because in the old time, I mean, the chef knew very well that you should not put meat on top because when you put meat on top, the meat is shrinking. And then you release the juice and fat. And the fat is coming on the fire. And then you have a lot of dioxins, benzopyrene. If you put meat in front of the fire, you know, the cooking will be the same
Ah, yeah.
because the infrared radiation go in any direction. It is not sensitive to gravity. So you could, when you are in front of a fire, you know, it's very hot.
Like a
So you,
rotisserie, French rotisserie, or
yeah,
you have it
exactly.
inside, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And now, in the end of the 19th century, some chef introduced a very interesting tool. It was you know, you had the fire here, then you had the meat, and behind you had um, a can, hemi-cylindric can in metal to make a reflection. So
Ah,
the
reflection.
bread it was cooked in both sides. Very smart, you
Right.
know.
So the meat
And
in the
this is
middle,
how we
fire on
can
one
cook.
side, meat in the middle, and reflector
Yeah,
on the other side. It's like an oven. It's just like
yeah.
an oven. Yeah.
In a way, but you know, it is simple. But
Yes.
I'm saying that the people in city have lost the skill of barbecuing. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, the smoke. When you smoke, personally, I'm smoking salmon and trout and or fishes and so on. But you know, you have to be careful. It's like using a knife. When you use a knife, you should not kill someone.
Mhm.
You have to cut your shallots, but smoking fish or meat is the same, and probably making barbecue is the same. We need the skill, and this is what we have to teach, and using, of course, some compounds because it's so much easier. So.
Exactly. Hey, I mean, if you like imagine a future, talking about to using components to create a protein to create a new dish without ever using an egg or a fresh fish. Uh, can you imagine a future where we'll be like doing everything in laboratories, all food, rather than producing locally? Or do you think it's going to be more and more of laboratory created
No,
food?
no, 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 it's not, you know, it's not from the lab. Remember the experiment that I told you about the souffle? You
Yeah.
can do that in your kitchen.
Yeah,
You
you
don't
can
need a
imagine
lab.
kitchens doing that. They would just instead of buying eggs, buy in the protein and
But you know, in my own kitchen,
dishes like that. Hmm?
you know, my own kitchen at home is a kitchen.
Yeah.
And in my kitchen, I have all these compounds. I mean, instead of spices or on top of spices, because there is no reason to oppose them. You can have both.
Mhm.
But in my kitchen, for example, I have proteins. Last week, for example, I wanted to make quenelle, you know, and my quenelle apparatus, it was a merlon. Merlon, I don't know the word in English.
Yeah.
Anyway, the quenelle apparatus was too weak. So I put 1 spoon of proteins. That's all. It was so simple. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we are living in the 21st century, so we have to behave like people from the 21st century. And there is no need of science. I mean, it is an application. So the science is done in labs, but cooking means doing that in a kitchen.
Mm.
And the kitchen, it could change anyway because the big advantage of node by node cooking is that instead of using fresh products that spoil, you use compounds that never spoil. For example, you take a box of egg white protein, you can store it for years, like sugar, like flour, like salt, and so on. So you don't need a fridge. And a fridge is, I mean, technically, it's not so good because the cold technology, you need energy first, which costs, and then you have some fluids that are not good for the climate. Now, when you imagine, I'm living in Paris. In Paris, you don't have fields for cultivating tomatoes. So my tomatoes are coming by truck. When you have a truck full of tomatoes, it is full of water because the tomato is 95% water. So a 10-ton truck coming to Paris with tomatoes is transporting 9.5 tons of water, which is crazy. And these tomatoes, they spoil because during the transportation, they are bum, 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 bum. They spoil. And at the end of markets, when the market is finished, you see a lot of food that is spoiled. Now it was evaluated that 1/3 of what is produced is spoiled or wasted.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And if you do not by not cooking or synthetic cooking, then you don't spoil because you extract the water at the farm, then you transport the powder or liquids, and it is very convenient, very fast. You do the flavor as you want, you do the consistency that you want. Another experiment, you take a glass, just a glass in your kitchen, you put 1 spoon of water, 1 spoon of protein. Now you take another one spoon, 2 spoons of water, 1 spoon of protein. Now the next one, 4 spoons of water, 1 spoon of protein, 8, 16. And now you put all that in your microwave oven. And of course, it's coagulating. The first one with 50% protein is very, very hard. I mean, harder than meat. Huh?
Yeah.
The second one is softer. The third one is even softer. The next one is like cooked egg white. The next one is softer than cooked egg white, like a royal, a very good royal, and so on. So depending on the concentration of protein, you can make it softer or harder. You decide. You decide. On the other hand, when you have a meat or something, when you cook, you get the result that is that unknown in the beginning. You just get a result. You don't have any control. And if you want to, how can you control imagine that you buy a piece of meat, how can you control it? The only thing that you can do is deciding for the temperature and the time of cooking. But it's not a good control because
how about back to the tomato? Can you also reconstitute the texture of a tomato? And how about the nutrition value, like minerals and vitamins?
Well, yeah, first of all, it's very easy to reproduce the texture, but it has no interest because tomatoes exist. So if you want if you dream of innovation, let's make a new consistency, not the one of tomatoes. Now, about the flavor, I told you that you can make the flavor that you want. But as well, you can make the nutrition as you want.
Okay.
If you want more fat, you put more fat. If you want more zinc, you put more zinc. If you want more vitamin E, you put more. I'm not sure that in the future we are going to add all these ingredients one by one. But imagine that you are at the farm. You have a small extractor. So you drop out the water, you get a powder, and you can fractionate this powder. If you don't drop anything, your oligo-elements or your nutritional value, vitamin, and so on, will be there. So you just need to put it. If you don't decide for a specific one, there is no need to be pure note by note. You can be practical note by note. You see?
Yes.
It was the same with oil. Oil is a mixture of triglycerides. Wow, let's use a mixture of triglyceride instead of one triglyceride in particular because practically it would be nonsense. So it is possible. It is theoretically there is no problem, but practically, in my address for the Sonning Prize reception in Copenhagen, I had this sentence, I will not be happy when the chefs are not cooking seated in a cold atmosphere with no noise and no stress.
Mhm.
This is what I want.
Yeah.
And I say that for decades. It has to be so. Otherwise, it's not a good job. If
Mm.
you are, if you have the stress, if you cannot think correctly about culinary art because you have so many, when you are standing up all day long, it's exhausting. Why should we do that? And this proposal is not so well accepted. I don't understand why.
Mm.
When I'm proposing that we peel the potato seated, some
Mm.
chefs tell me, no, 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 we have to be standing up. Why? There is no reason. So changes are needed in the kitchen. Changes are needed. And changes are needed for food security, so producing enough to eat to humankind, which is a problem because in 2050 there will be 10 billion point four human in the earth. We can feed only 7 today. And the energy price is rising, so we have to be careful about that. So any proposal that would reduce the cost of energy should be welcome. And as well, being more comfortable. We are not in the Middle Age. We are in a new era. We have, today I did not use a horse to go to my lab. Um, and it was easier, it was more convenient. When I am writing a book, I'm not using a feather with ink, I'm using my computer. So if I want to erase something, I do it. So, we have to live in our own century. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Hervé, so if our chefs who are listening, they want to know a little bit more, do you have any advice where they can seek more information? Uh,
Uh, in 2014, we created the International Center of Molecular Gastronomy. There is a lot of information there. It's free. Everything that I'm doing is free. And we have a growing community, very important. Now we have labs in 34 countries of the world, so it's not so bad. And chefs can participate. We have created an international journal of molecular and physical gastronomy. There is one part on recipes, for example, note by note recipe. The winner of the contests every year are publishing their recipes there. So everything is published, everything is there available.
Wonderful.
No, it's very
We
convenient.
will take
And,
those
and
links.
the chef, if the chef want to send me an email, they can. I'm always answering email.
Excellent. And so
But I have something to add. Each time I'm answering a technical question, because I'm not paid, I'm putting the answer as well in my blog.
I see. Okay. Very good. So we will take those links and we will put them in the on the podcast webpage. So if our listeners, they can go to the podcast webpage, they can click on the link so they can find it easily.
Mhm.
Actually, also I got an email from you just this week that you have the final event of the note by note cooking contest. So the 13th international contest for note by note cooking is in September, 5th of September.
Yeah, the
So,
fifth, yeah.
we will put that as well if people want to know more.
There
Uh,
will be probably a Visio link as well, because if people cannot come to Paris or nearby, they can follow the event.
Excellent. We can share that. We can share that link with our audience. We'll be
Yeah,
very
yeah,
happy to
yeah,
stream it on our Facebook. And so I take up your offer. So we'll be in contact. It would be great to have a seminar for our chefs uh,
Mhm.
that you can explain in more detail and maybe also with visual because this is a podcast. This is mostly voice, but through a webinar when people can see you working with your hands and visually. See what you are talking about in a more detail, a longer period. That'll be really, really great. I thank you for that, Hervé. So,
Very good. Very good. Let's do it.
and we'll keep in contact for World Chef Congress 2026 if you're available. I know you have a busy month, and we'll see how the dates they fit in. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hervé. It was a pleasure to talk to you again.
Yeah, a pleasure.
Always fascinating, and I'm looking forward to continue the discussion. And as you said, why do people resist to change? They get nostalgic, and so I think it's really
Ah,
important that we live in our own century and that we're open to new ways of thinking for
I'm
for
not
the
making
challenge of the
I'm
world.
not making any law. I'm not a king. I'm not. I'm just giving advices for free. People do what they want.
Exactly.
But I realize that for science, a good evaluator is someone who is kind with you and asking questions. I love when my friends are asking me questions. Why do you do that? Why do you do it in this way? Because I can think about that and I can answer, try to answer. So I'm trying to be this way for chef because I love my friends that are chef because I have a lot of admiration for real artists, you know, making something good is so difficult. Making something beautiful in music is so moving, in painting, in art in general. When you have an artist, it is something precious in the history of humankind. So we have to be careful about them. And this is why it is, I mean, I should not spend 1 second on application of molecular gastronomy. I should be in my lab all day long. And that, by the way, I'm in my lab all day long. But I should focus on equation. But anyway, if I can move in this outside world sometime and be helpful, let's do it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hervé. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And thank you all for listening. You're listening to World Chefs Podcast. I'm your host, Ragnar Friedrichsen. This is World on a Plate. And don't forget to sign up to the podcast. And remember, World Chef Congress 2026, now early bird on sales. So do sign up and follow us on World Chefs. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.